Welcome to the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers. There are no traffic jams along the extra mile when you're studying for your bar exam. And now your hosts, Jackson Mummy and Megan Saya from Celebration Bar Review.
Hey everybody, welcome. Today is Wednesday, July 6th. Megan will be joining me. Hi, Megan.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
We have for the February students, we have boot camp coming up in October. I'm so excited. Just every week we're having like more interest in it and people signing up and putting their deposits down. So I'm really looking forward to doing it. Please make sure to get your deposit in if that's something that you are interested in. If you're a February taker or later, we are so excited to do that live and in person and to get to talk to you guys in really small group settings and over the course of a few days, just being able to spend that time together where it's all people who are focused on this one test and have the same approach to taking it, it's really a cool experience.
That's a great experience. It's 2 days, October 14th and 15th here in Celebration, Florida, right outside of Orlando. June will be working with mindset. Megan will be working with writing. I'll be teaching photo reading and mind mapping along with Megan. And we will be only accepting 15 students into boot camp. We already have deposits being accepted. And once we get to 15, we'll put everybody else on the wait list. But the great part is you put down your deposit now. The balance is not due until September 10th. And your deposit is fully refundable. So if for some reason you change your mind, you have no risk at all. So look, if you're even remotely thinking about doing this, please sign up now. Don't get left out. The people who come to boot camp tend to be the people who pass. That's what we've learned over the years. So if you really want to make that extra push, I think this is the way to do it. You will learn so much in those 2 days. And we'll take care of everything except your travel and lodging. And we'll take care of your meals and get you all set up. So make sure you check that out. Get onto the website. You'll see a link for boot camp, or you can email us and we'll give you the link and get your deposit in.
Great. All right, let's move into some student questions. We have a great question in the chat box. When are we supposed to start taking OPEs? Good question.
So you want to go back to my day 24 email, which was sent out last Saturday. And the answer to that question is you get to the OPES, certainly by July 10th would be a great date to start moving into those. We have some people that are already there. But between now and July 10th, if you're still doing study, keep moving through that and doing your MBE questions by topic. Once you get to the 10th of July, you don't need to do more MBE questions that are segmented simply by contracts or torts or property. And now you switch over to the OPEs because that will give you practice in 6 of the 7 subjects. And then later you'll move to full-length exams. I want to just remind you, if you didn't look at that email on day 24, go back to it and print it out. Isn't that what you do, Megan? Because it's a lot.
Well, I just keep it online, but yes, yeah. I star it and keep it in a specific folder so I can refer to it often. It's a very helpful email. Yes.
Yeah, so I would encourage everybody to do that. I will also reference benchmarks as we keep moving. I know some of you think, wow, we're like right there. We are not. We are a very long way from the bar exam still. So just keep watching your daily emails and we'll get you there step by step.
Yeah, I think that email is really helpful too, because it gives you score goals to hit and it'll help you evaluate, okay, on this particular test, if this was my scaled or unscaled score, then here's what I should do next. And so it's got a little mini decision tree almost of,
Right.
Great, if I hit this on this test, then I'm good and I don't need to do any more full length practice. If I'm in this score range, then I should move on to this one. So I think it's just a really helpful email and it answers a lot of the questions about the MBE practice at the end that can get a little bit overwhelming, I think, otherwise. All right, next, I like this question too. Okay, this is someone who said, I'm having issues specifically with trust essays. I'm familiar with the general rules, but I find the call of the question in this topic to be a little overbroad, which results in me not being able to organize an answer or not even knowing what they're asking at times. Do you have any tips for tackling trust essays specifically? Are the review essays an example of how the examiners in Florida are currently testing the subject, or do they ask questions with more specificity now?
Yeah, it's a great question or a series of questions. Let me deal with the last one first. They are generally in all jurisdictions more specific today than they were a few years ago. And the reason for that is that it's easier to grade and calibrate answers. So it's for their benefit, not yours, but it works out in your benefit. So I would generally, if you go back and look at the exams and you've got all of them up through February 2022, I think, in every jurisdiction, go back and look and you'll see that they don't tend to say discuss all issues or talk about broad things. And that's not an absolute, but for example, in the UBE, every single question had 4 or 5 calls to the question. Florida had specific calls to the question in every question as well. Now, as to trust specifically, what I would say to you, whether you're in Florida or anywhere else, is that a trust answer for me, and we'll see what Megan thinks, I think most of the time, the very first fundamental question is, do you have a valid trust established? And so you're going to look at the elements of creating a trust. And then the decision tree is, yes, there is a valid trust. And now you start looking at the duties of the trustee and the relationships between the settlor and the trustee and the beneficiaries and third parties. That's your entire universe in a trust problem, instead of a settlor, I guess I should say a testator. And then that's really where the rest of the answer is going to go. What are the duties of the trustee? What are the rights of the beneficiaries? What are the rights of the third party? Can the settlor do certain things? But it all starts with the validity of the trust. And then I just draw out a little square with one point of the square. I've got the settlor, then I've got the trustee, then I've got the beneficiaries and the third parties. And the whole world, their entire universe of trusts is in that world. So that's how I think about it. What about you? What do you do?
Yeah, I love that. And I totally agree. The only distinction that I want to make is that, and if you've done the writing workshop or any coaching with me, you've heard this before, make sure that when you're looking and asking yourself the question first of, is there a valid trust, that you are very clear on, has the question, the fact pattern already answered that for me? If they tell you there is a valid trust, or if there is literally nothing in the facts to indicate that there might even potentially be a problem with the trust, then you don't need to worry about it and you don't need to talk about it. Okay. So take as gospel truth what they tell you. If they say there's a valid trust, but then we have all these other problems here, then don't waste your time showing the examiners how great you are at knowing the requirements to create a trust if that's not in conflict. So yeah, but other than that's a caveat that I know Jackson definitely agrees with me on. But yes, other than that, yeah, I would say that's how I approach it as well. All right, good question. All right, Jackson. So the question that you asked July takers this week was a good one. I always enjoy the answers to this, and it's what's holding you back in your bar study, right? We're just a few weeks away at this point. What is it with our students that's holding them back? Let's discuss their answers. And they really tended to coalesce around a few themes. So for some of these, if I don't read your answer, it's because you had a similar theme to someone else. And so we're going to try to group those themes together. But again, just like last week, man, whatever you're going through, we got at least a few people for each one who are going through the same exact thing. All right. So first is interesting. I'm going to put these together and you can answer them as you see fit. Following the directions, doing things on time, procrastination on my studies, things like that, right? Maybe I think one person said, gosh, I feel like I'm like watching TV or doing like finding sort of other things that are just, I can zone out more because I'm so anxious about my studies, or I'm just struggling to meet deadlines that I need to meet, things like that. What do you suggest, Jackson, for people who are struggling with that kind of stuff?
Yeah. And I'll start by just saying, I certainly feel your pain. When I get into that mode, I start organizing things. So I organize my office, I organize the house, I just, whatever I can organize. And then I feel guilty because I wasn't doing the work I was supposed to do. How do you deal with that? Well, there are a couple of things. There is a great Paraliminal called Get Around to It. It's part of our Paraliminal pack. If you haven't ordered the Paraliminal pack, I would encourage you to do that. There's 16 recordings, but one of them is this Get Around to It, which is great for procrastination. You just listen to it, and then magically you just find yourself getting up and doing the work you have to do. But I really think the really deep part of this is the emotional fear. And I suspect that for a lot of people, what happens is that there is a part of our non-conscious brain that says, look, if you go all out and you fail, that must mean you're a failure, that you personally are a failure. And Megan says this all the time, you're not your bar score. And I really believe that. And the problem is sometimes we really think we are our bar score. And so what our non-conscious does is it acts like an automatic braking system on my car. I've got brand new car, and if it senses something in the road, it slows me down. I'm like, what? I don't see anything, but it's doing that for me. Your non-conscious is just like that. And it's saying, you know what? I don't think we should go all out, because then we wouldn't have any excuse or justification when the results come out badly, which is what we think is going to happen. And so that's when you have to step in and say to your non-conscious, whoa, time out, we're not going that direction. You use the tools we've given you, the Paraliminals that talk about power thinking and the law of attraction, and those sorts of tools are great. But even if you don't want to buy the Paraliminal pack, in your course near the bottom of the assignments is a set of self-care videos in which we address some of those things with affirmations and circle of excellence. These are 5 or 10-minute videos that you can watch as often as you want. And they're designed to help break you out of those traps and ruts that I think people get into. But this is a time when that starts to happen. And I think it's mostly a fear reaction. What's your thought about that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I have just been seeing a lot of it over the last couple of weeks, just almost constantly, of people really self-sabotaging, I think. So I really agree with you. I think too, there's something, and I think it's oftentimes not conscious, but something to people feeling, if I push the limits a little bit, then Megan or Jackson can be the bad guy and not me. And it can turn into, I think I had a couple instances this week of a deadline, and then the person would turn the thing in maybe 15, 20 minutes after the deadline. And I wonder when I see that, oh, are you hoping that then I'll be the bad guy to say, oh, we can't do this anymore, because then, oh, phew, I don't have to do it anymore. So I think it's a little bit of self-sabotage. And I do think I have a lot of sympathy, because goodness knows we all do it. I do it. But I think there's a little bit of, hey, I don't want to, maybe the one side is like Jackson, you were saying, I don't want to push all out, because then if I am not successful, then I feel like I failed. But I can always say, oh, I could have tried harder and I didn't. And that's why. But on the other side, I'm scared to try, but I also don't want to be the one to say that or acknowledge that. So it's, if I can let somebody else take the fall, right, then I can be like, it wasn't my fault. I tried, I did mine. So I think it's all related to mindset. And I wish June was here. She'll be back tomorrow, I think. Yes. But I think a lot of it is related to mindset and feeling like the thoughts and fears that you have are overwhelming. And so they come out in really weird ways under stress, which is just a part of human nature for sure.
And I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think the other part of what happens is, I think if you're listening to this or watching this right now, you're saying, no, that's not my situation. I'm just really busy. And I've got so much going on, and I'm feeling a lot of stress, as you say. Here's the other part of this being busy part. The practice of being a lawyer is in part about meeting deadlines. It's being responsible, it's staying cool under pressure. And when you start to freak out, then we're 3 full weeks from the exam. And I know it feels like the exam is imminent, but 3 full weeks is a very long time. Trust me. Trust Megan, it is a very long time. And so if you're acting as though it's going to be tomorrow morning and you're in a headlong panic, you're not going to be able to sustain that level of energy and adrenaline for 3 weeks, and you're going to crash. And when you crash, it's going to be painful, and you certainly don't want to crash on exam day. So sometimes it's good to just stop and breathe. Literally, that's simple. Just stop and breathe, recenter yourself, and then look at the instructions. So here's a great example. We have very clear instructions about submitting work to us for conference. And we say, don't make an appointment until after you schedule. We have students every year, and this year is no different, in which they schedule up 3 or 4 appointments for the next week without sending any work. June's not here, and Megan and I are pushovers, so we don't tend to say you can't do that. But here's what inevitably happens. That student then starts having to reset those appointments because the work isn't ready in time. And we know that you're setting the appointment because you think it'll force you to do the writing, but trust me, it doesn't work that way. In human nature, it just won't happen. And so the instruction is send your writing, then schedule the event. And we've got plenty of time for you. You're not going to miss out. We have never had a student who said, I wasn't able to use my conferences because you guys weren't available. That just doesn't happen. So you got to trust the system, but you also have to take a breath and kind of relax and realize that if you follow the directions, it'll be easier for you. And if you think it's going to be any different once you're a member of the bar, I think you're going to be surprised. It's the same kind of pressure, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's very true. Lawyering involves a lot of deadlines, Yeah, that's true. So we will continue to try to extend grace. Like, we're not mean. We don't want to tell you, oh, you did it wrong. But we are going to gently remind you. And then, but if it happens repeatedly, then we have to say, we're going to have to lay down the law. So I say this has been really across the board. I'm just seeing it everywhere over the last couple of weeks. So I think there's a bit of rising panic in people. And so I really want to encourage everyone to make sure that you are keeping proper perspective about what's happening. I promise we are going to get you in. If you want a call with me or with Jackson, we will get you in before the exam. I promise. I opened up a new time to a student just yesterday, right, who said, I really need to meet with you and I'm not seeing a time that works for me. And I said, great, what time would be good for you? And let's find it. And I put him on the calendar. So we are very aware of the difficulty and the stress of these next few weeks. And we really want to do everything we can to make sure that, at least on our end, the little bit that we can control is not adding to your panic or your stress.
And one final point that I'll make to this, because it really is a good set of questions. And we got this from a bunch of people. It wasn't just one person, I can assure you. Find an accountability partner. Find somebody that will hold your feet to the fire and say, you know what, I think that you had said you were going to do this and you need to do it. If you've got a partner or spouse, they'll remind you how much the bar review cost. And when you're not doing your bar prep, they've got the right to say, hello, you should be doing that and not doing this other stuff that's procrastination or just staying away from the work you have to do. And it's really good. But you've got to give them permission to do that. All right. If you don't give them permission, they're not going to say anything unless they're really upset. And then it's going to turn into a fight. And then you're going to be wasting the time around the fight, which some people do. This is a good time to just take a breath, go to somebody and say, these next 3 weeks, it's a season, it's not going to last forever, but I really need somebody to hold me accountable. Did I study today? Did I keep my commitments? Did I do the work I've got to do? I'm going through a probiotic gut challenge this month, right? And I get a text every day from a little bot that says, did you drink your shake today? And it's accountability, right? And Megan's laughing because she knows that I'm not good at stuff like this. But you know what? 6 days in, man, I've had a shake every day because I don't want that little bot asking me and I have to say no. So find something like that. I guess maybe we should make an accountability bot, Megan. What do you think?
Yeah. All right, great. So those are good questions. And like Jackson said, we got this from a lot of people. Definitely, if that's you, I would almost say it's almost everyone is feeling at least some level of that kind of insecurity about procrastination, timing, directions, like how do I stick to this? All right, next, this was an interesting one. I found a big challenge on exam day last time for me was getting used to answering printed questions and having to look down on the page instead of comfortably reading on a screen. So I'm trying to simulate testing conditions as best I can. I will continue to do the review lessons, as you mentioned, as well as your other tips. So this was an interesting one, the switch back, because we were in printed land for forever. And then we switched to everything being online. And that was really hard for some people to make that adjustment. And now we're back to printed. And I'm sure it's hard, this jumping back and forth. What are you training your brain for? And then having to switch gears. Any thoughts, Jackson, on how people can manage this if they're struggling with the new old format?
Yeah, and I'm going to broaden this out because at 21 days, that's the time that it takes to really build in a habit. There's a great book by James Cleary called Atomic Habits. And what he says is you do small things and they leads up to bigger things and you create a habit. This is the time for you to start creating your bar days habit. And here's what I mean, and I'll get to the printed part. You should start going to bed every night at the time you will go to bed on Monday and Tuesday of bar exam week in the time zone that you're going to be in. You should get up at the time you will get up for Tuesday and Wednesday in the time zone you're going to be in. You should start eating the dinners and the breakfasts that you intend to have on bar exam days and the lunches that you intend to have so that you're creating the habit. Your study, if it's full-time, should be 3 hours in the morning, break, 3 hours in the afternoon, longer break, a couple of hours in the evening. In other words, you're simulating the Tuesday of the bar exam. You should be wearing a mask every day that you study if you're going to be in an environment where you want to wear a mask. And I think most jurisdictions now have made that voluntary, not mandatory. But quite honestly, if I'm sitting in a room with 3,000 people in Tampa, Florida, I'm going to be wearing a mask. And so you need to get used to wearing a mask for 10 hours during the day while you study. And this goes to the question of the books and working. It is different, I think, with a mask on, looking up, looking down, being able to see what's going on. They're just parts of that are awkward. And so what I would do is I would print out your questions when you're doing them so that you get used to that. Now, we've got all of the online questions and we've got all the digital questions, and they're very convenient. But in this 21-day period, I think it's just as helpful to actually download the PDF, print the part that you want, and work from the paper. If you've got the books, obviously you can do it from there. But one of those two ways would be preferable so that you get into that approach and you just get used to using it and highlighting and annotating it and marking.
Yeah, I agree. I think the real key is that you want to be comfortable with whatever it's going to look like on that day. And it also means, and I know this is really difficult, it also means letting go of what it used to be. So we had this with a lot of discussions with students of this during the pandemic, where it was really hard. People very understandably felt like it's not fair. I thought it was going to be X and now it's Y, and I just can't. And they were so stuck on the changes that it was really hard to just move forward. You are not going to, if you're in a jurisdiction where they're giving you the essays on paper, you are not going to get them online. And so that means you have to let go of that wish. And I know that's really hard because it can feel like, but it's not fair, but they used to do it. And why can't they? And for sure, if that's something that after the bar is over, you want to advocate for changes to your state's bar, awesome. But right now in these next 3 weeks, it's not going to change. And so you need to just prepare your mind for what it's actually going to be, and don't have one foot in the past and one foot in the present. Just accept it and move forward with it, which again comes back to that mindset thing.
Yeah, it really is about mindset. And part of the mindset when you're actually at the exam is to stay in your own lane, not engage with other people, not be part of the drama. And there will be drama everywhere, and just staying away from that. I think you could see political drama. I think that there will be people that have political agendas that show up at the bar exam. You want to stay out of all of that. Your job is to go in, prove that you're ready to be a lawyer, and get out. And so you want to just be in that mindset right from now through the exam, that's what you're doing. And you might say, boy, that's pretty strict and robotic, but really it's what you need to do. I released a video today called Habit and Consistency, where I talk about those very things. Why do we do it at 20 days? Because this is when you create the habits. So if you haven't seen that video, it's in your countdown series, but it's also online in the private community group. It's a 20-minute video, so it's a little bit longer, but I think it's really worth it. So encourage you to do that.
Wonderful. All right. Next is, again, mindset, right? Okay. We're just like sensing a theme here. These ones are about fear and insecurity, right? So we got a lot of this. Someone saying moments of doubt, voices of insecurity, fear of getting the same past result of failure, feeling like I'm not doing enough, even though I'm seeing improvement, habits from long ago of negative self-talk, of just, this is the way that I think of myself or speak to myself. And it's really hard to break out of that, especially if I have a hard day of study, or if I do practice set of MBE questions and I don't hit the score that I wanted to. You have that confidence, and then one little stumble can send some people spiraling, feeling, what's the point of even trying? Really common. Jackson, what advice do you have?
Yeah, it's so hard because I think that whatever we think about is what we tend to focus on. And then we say, that's the only way it can be. And I know that that's all I can do. And then we get into this mindset, as you say, of feeling fear and scarcity, and it's not going to work out, and I'm just terrified. And I think what you have to be willing to do is to be authentic with yourself and talk about what you've accomplished you got to the point where you can take a bar exam. That's a pretty huge deal. And you need to remind yourself of all that you've accomplished, whether that's through a gratitude journal or journaling some of the things. This is something June will do in the last week. She'll have people really focus on this. But it means just being honest with yourself. We can become martyr in this process and think that nobody else understands, and they don't, but nobody else cares either. And so that's part of the problem. And then we feel worse, and then we get afraid, and then we get into this spiral and cycle, and it's a bad place to be for sure. So I think you want to be really careful about not getting into that system and that structure. Now, again, there are paraliminals that will help. I'm going to place the link in the chat box, which I'm very impressed with myself that I can do this. And you can check it out, and you have immediate access to those paraliminals once you order. And we've had a bunch of people ordering them in the last week or so, and they're just really valuable. I just find it's a great way to avoid the block, right? And avoid the fear.
Yeah. I think this is when you want to surround yourself with people who are kind, with people who are positive, right? So this might be the time when you say, I have that really good friend and they're a great friend and they have wonderful attributes, but they can be a bit pessimistic. It's probably okay to just say, I just need to take a little step back just for a few weeks, because I think that especially if you find that you are a person who can fall into those old patterns quickly of thinking badly about yourself or feeling hopeless, you want to avoid any triggers for yourself with that, okay, over the next few weeks. And then I say it all the time, but talk to yourself the way you would talk to a friend. You would never tell your friend who was studying for the bar that they're stupid, that they can't do this, that this is too hard, what's wrong with them. You would never say that. Don't say it to yourself, okay? Don't let your self-talk be something that you would never, ever speak to someone who you loved, okay? That's really, like, I say it all the time, but I think it's really important. And especially as you get into this past or in these next few weeks, it's going to be really easy to feel like every small blip is a huge problem. And that's another thing is, again, keeping the right perspective. Last week, I remember I had a student who had a pretty bad essay, but the essays he'd been doing before had been improving and then had a rough one. And then the next ones he sent me were fantastic. They were the best ones he sent yet. Just because you have a not as great of a performance on something as you were hoping does not mean, oh, that's it. That's where you're going to stay now. You're going to have dips in bar study. The point is, on the whole, when you step back, are you progressing? It's not a straight line. You're going to have ups and downs, but on the whole, are you getting better? That's the goal with this. Okay. And then again, like Jackson said, the exam is not tomorrow. It's 3 weeks away. And so you do not have to be ready tomorrow. You do not have to be writing good. I hope you're writing good essays, but they don't have to be perfect essays yet. You don't have to be passing MBE scores yet. The point is that you're moving forward, that you're growing, that you're progressing. So I did love some of the language that I heard in some of these people who were saying, I'm feeling this fear. I'm feeling this like doubt. Also saying, I am improving though. I am doing better. So it's focus on those, hold on to those things of what's happening that I can hang my head on and feel proud of, because I promise you there's something that you're doing that you can and should feel really proud of.
Yeah, I think you should be proud of the fact that you're sitting for the bar exam. You know, there's a lot of people that bailed out a long time ago. We're proud of all of you. Really, we say this all the time. We're super proud of everybody that goes in and takes the exam. And obviously the goal is to pass, but for some of you, just going and taking the exam is a big win. Don't minimize that.
Yeah. All right. Next is what's holding me back is I'm sort of don't know what my last few weeks should look like. How do I organize my time with what I have left?
Yeah, I think you do take your time, and I would organize in only a week at a time. Even though we're 3 weeks away, I would still only stay a 7-day schedule. And don't overdo, don't overcommit. I hear students that say, I'm going to study 10 or 12 hours a day. Maybe you will, but for the most part, you probably won't hit those numbers every day. So don't overdo it. I still like the idea of 3-hour max study blocks. I would not sit at a desk or doing this work for more than 3 hours at a time without a break of an hour or two. And so I like the idea of mirroring the exam, 3 hours in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, then a little bit at night. So I think that's one of the ways you do it. But I think when people overschedule, when they overcommit to their bar study, then they don't hit those marks. It's like sending in the Calendly request for an appointment when you haven't written the work. Then you feel bad and you got to reschedule. And it creates this chaos level that you really don't need. So give yourself some wins every day. What is it when you get up in the morning? What is it you want to accomplish today with your study? What do you want to be better at by the time you go to bed tonight? Set that as a goal and then work towards that goal. We call it birds on a wire. You're just knocking certain things off one at a time, one after each other, so that you have the opportunity to really work through all of the material, but you're working on the things that you need to work on. Don't try to do it all. You don't need to go all the way back through the course again. Just find the things you don't know and then knock them off, bing, and you get better. And that's how you improve.
Yeah, exactly. I'm reminded of at my kids' school, they talk about SMART goals. And I know it's like very much a common thing. I love it. So your goal should be specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. And I really love that because I think we get really hard on ourselves when we set an unrealistic goal and then we don't meet it. And it's like, that's not even on us. It wasn't actually attainable, let's say, or it wasn't specific enough so that I could tell if I met it or not, or whatever the problem is. And time-based, that it's, if I have this like amorphous, I'm going to learn constitutional law today. Like, what does that look like? Versus I'm going to spend 3 hours going through my con law mind map and 10 con law MBE questions. And I'm going to go through these questions and I'm going to review them and add to my mind map and talk through my mind map out loud to myself, right? These are things that by the end of that 3 hours, you can say, I did it. Or maybe you're like, you know what? I got 99% of the way through, but there's one little piece that I still feel like I need to keep working on. Great. Then you can move that one little piece into your afternoon block. But I did this. I've achieved something. So I definitely highly recommend that. And that's funny. Someone said in the chat box to me that it's like IEP goals are like that. They're an IEP coordinator. So that's the individualized education plans. Yeah. Schools use it all the time. I think corporations use it. It's just really helpful. So please set reasonable, achievable goals for yourself because it'll help with every piece. It'll help with your anxiety. It'll help with your sense of accomplishment, right? If you can point to it and say, I did something today. I know more right now than I did when I started my work today, which is really great.
So Megan, it's interesting that these things that are holding people back are not, I don't know enough of constitutional law, or I didn't learn the rule against perpetuities. That's not the kind of comments we got, were they?
No, not at all. Not at all. And it's not surprising. I know you and I know that. And it's always a big breakthrough, honestly, with students when they say that to me. When they say, I'm realizing that my problem isn't that I don't know the law, but my problem is that there's something else. I didn't understand the right way to write an essay. I didn't understand what the examiners were actually looking for, or I didn't understand how to best articulate all these thoughts that were swirling in my head about the law that I know, or I didn't know time management or whatever it is. So yes, it's not surprising, but very interesting. All right. And Jackson, the last one, I love this one. So one student, the one sole student who said, what's holding you back? They said, nothing. You've provided the tools and the coaching. It's all execution now. I love that. That's great.
That's a great answer. We love seeing that. I think that for a lot of people, you will get to that point. If you're not there today, that's fine. But you will get to that point where you say, you know what, I'm ready to take the exam. Megan and I comment on this all the time with each other, that in the last week or so, when we do wrap-up calls with the students that we're mentoring, for the most part, we're not really doing anything that's substantive. We're just saying, go get them, right? I use the analogy of a flight controller, an airplane controller in the tower. We want you to land the plane. So we're telling you where the runway is and what the airspeed is and the wind, and we're clearing everything. We're telling you what altitude to be at, but you're flying the plane. And basically at the end, you're on the glide slope to land the plane. And that's what you're doing. And we're not doing anything. We're just sitting here. We're just watching you land the plane. I think that for most people, they get into that glide slope at the end, and they come in and make a nice soft landing and really hit their mark when it comes to the bar exam days. Now, by comparison, they're the people who are in an utter panic the whole time, and they're trying to land the plane by putting more power into the plane. Let's go faster and faster. Yeah, don't do that. You're coming in hot is what we say. Don't come in hot. Come in ready to take the exam. And you will get to that point before the test. For some people, it happens like this student today, 21 days out, and that is fabulous. For some people, it won't happen until the day before the test, and it doesn't matter. It's just on the day of the test, those 2 days of the test, that you're at your peak, you're ready to go. And you won't be at your peak if you're freaked out, and you won't be at your peak if you're exhausted, and you won't be at your peak if you've been drinking 27 cups of coffee every day to stay awake so that you can get through all of this. And so I think it's really important to have that perspective this far out. And I know people are staying out there. What does he mean this far out? The bar exam is 20 days away. 20 days is way over the hill. It's out, it's over the horizon. You can barely see it still. You are a long way out. Yeah. And by the way, I do some airplane analogy videos between now and the exam. So brace yourself for that. Not a rough landing. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. It's always you don't have to be 100% ready today. So if you feel ready, that's awesome. Let's do everything we can to hold on to that feeling. And if you're not there, that's actually the expectation. I don't expect anybody to be there yet. So that's all right. Have grace for yourself. Trust that you are learning and growing every day that you put in the work, right? That's what's happening, is that we are doing everything we can on our end to support you and help you and be there for what you need. And then at the end of the day, we trust that you are doing right everything that you need to do. And when you come to exam day, then all you can do is take the culmination of all of the hard work that you've put in and show the examiner, show them what you're capable of, show them how well you can think and use legal reasoning. That's really the goal there. I hope that this was helpful and that people feel like they have a few more tools in their toolkit, or at least they know that they're not alone. Sometimes that's all we need, is to know it's not just me. There's nothing wrong with me.
And this is one of the reasons we do group coaching calls. We've got some incredibly talented group coaches. We've got Amanda, and we've got Brianna, and we've got Bobka. And of course, June comes back, and her mindset coaching is always jammed up with people. You'll see all of those different days and times, and you're welcome to attend any or all of those. They are incredible teachers. They are all people that really have something to offer. And it's great to feel that, get the accountability, but also to know you're not, as Megan said, you're not alone, that everybody that's there is going through the same thing. But Amanda and Bobka and Brianna all have been in your shoes. They've taken and passed the bar exam with celebration. They know what the process is and they know how it works. And you really ought to take advantage of their expertise. I think sometimes people think they're only going to get expertise from you and me. That is absolutely not the case. We have a good staff, a big staff of people who are very talented. So lots of ways that you can get the help you need. There's also the community group. I encourage you to post in there. It is a terrific resource. It's also where we post whatever's happening and new stuff and videos and all those things. You'll see them and get them first there. So make sure you're signed into the Extra Mile secret group there on the community group. So there you go. We cover it all, Megan.
Yep, that's it for today. I hope everybody has great studying for the rest of the week and they have a good weekend and feel productive and continue to give themselves grace and speak kindly to themselves and trust that they are improving every day and just need to keep putting in the work.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be back again next week, and you can pick up any of these tools that we've been talking about, like Paraliminals and BarMaps and Multistate nutshell videos and the Abundance for Bar Study MasterClass. We got a bunch of stuff that nobody else can even touch. So make sure you check all that out. Thank you all for being here. Have a great study week. Thank you, Megan. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for listening and watching the Extra Mile podcast for bar exam takers at celebrationbarreview.com.